Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Damla Aktekin.
Yes.
Pronounce your name again.
It's Damla Aktekin.
Because you say it so much more beautiful than I do. She is a multifaceted healer and spiritual teacher specializing in inner child energetic wound healing and crystal healing. Her transformative approach fosters deep, co creative relationships with crystals, viewing them as allies rather than tools, which aligns with her philosophy of connection and love. Damla's work is profoundly influenced by a revelatory dream of Egypt, guiding her unique method of healing inner child wounds. She imparts her wisdom through her writings, the Chakra Bliss Vault membership, and the Conversation with Healers podcast. Oh, fellow podcaster, yes, I love that. You are, like I said, you are an expert in what you do, and I'm so grateful that you're on my show today. I'm excited to see where our conversation goes.
Same, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And I would just love for you to go ahead and share with us what it means to be an inner child energetic wound healer and how you discovered this calling.
Yeah. Um, you know what? Let's start with the dream that you mentioned because I think that's gonna shed light
Yes.
on so many things. So I I had been a healer for a while by then. This is happening in like 2021, 2022. But I kept increasingly being pulled towards Egypt without knowing it. And this trip to Egypt came into my consciousness. And I was like, should I do it? Should I not do it? And around that time, I had a dream where it's nighttime. I am standing by the Great Pyramid and I look up at the night sky, and there are millions and millions and millions of stars, these little dots shining. And I'm just in awe of it. And people start to pass me by, and I tell them, look at the stars, look at them. And some people do stop and look with me, and some people just pass me by. And I woke up knowing that I was looking at the inner night sky. And all of those little dots, little stars, represented the quantum potentials of our inner children, quantum sparks. And I realized that what I call energetic wounds, um, up until that point, which I didn't know, which the dream connected the dots for me, was even if there are clouds in the night sky, those potentials still exist. So in the inner child healing that I practice and you know, work with, which came through just my own inner exploration and my explorations with my clients, is there is no concept of inner children being broken because you can't. They can't be broken and they're not here to be fixed. You simply need to find a way to move through the clouds and connect with them. Um, and for me, I had the blessed experience of standing by the Great Pyramid at nighttime. I did take that journey, that actual trip, which brought it full circle. And now, when I work with someone's inner children, I know that we're doing so much more than just trying to heal a wound. We are working with unrealized potentials that are waiting to come to life.
Absolutely. And I notice children because I have two sons and I have a stepson, and they're the light of my world. They okay, so there's a 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, and them two just love each other so much, and there's like best friends. And of course, I have a teenager. He kind of stays away from them a little bit because he's had his own experience when he was little. But you can see that magic in their eyes, and they're just using their imagination. They're loving the world. They have all they have is love. And as my sons in school, in high school, then you can see the conditioning starts happening, and then more of the fear comes, and the doubt, and the everything. And then I have to remind him about that inner child that he once had. And I remember seeing this video of him when he was like 1 years old in his little crib, and I was just videoing him, and I saw him looking beyond and just gazing at, I don't know what it was, but he had this so like this happy like look of like joy and content. And I know that we also have that within us, no matter what trauma we've gone through in our lives. I was hearing a podcast about how you had a specific trauma that had happened to you, where you had emergency C-section. That actually happened to me as well, with my 8-year-old. And it was a traumatic experience. And then I think definitely life changing. And we can talk about that a little bit later on, but I just wanted to go ahead and connect the dots and how sometimes that whenever what trauma we experience, there's still that inner child that we nurture and love so much. Anyway, I'm just learning about inner child work, so I think it's beautiful that you're talking about that today.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching upon a beautiful point, which is when people hear the concept of inner child healing, they're like, oh no, I don't want to go back to reliving that trauma, or like, I don't want to dive into the pain. But it really is not about that. I mean, the majority, yes, there's a little bit of feeling without going into the story. We don't need to go into the story because the body holds the energetic records anyway. But the majority of my work is just people coming alive at the end of a session, touching that joyful child, touching that part of themselves that is playful, that is gleeful, that has been just waiting to be unleashed. So yeah, there's an element of definitely rediscovering who you were and who you could have been, even if you didn't have a particularly gleeful or joyful childhood. Those potentials still exist in you. And what you said is so beautiful because it is about love. It is about loving the cloudy places, of loving the icky sticky places. And yeah, and I had certainly my share of those. What you're mentioning too, I gave birth to my daughter in 2012 with an emergency C-section, which sort of catapulted me into all that I'm doing today.
Yes. And let's talk a little bit about the crystals. And I was introduced to crystals, I think back in 2012, 2012. And my ex-husband, he's my ex-husband, but my husband at the time, he loved crystals and he was saying that they hold some type of energy. We would go to these like crystal like conventions where they would sell them, and some people I would ask, oh, what does this stone do? And they're like, oh, it doesn't do anything, it's just this type of stone. And then some people are like, oh, it holds this type of like properties, and it's this and so it was so neat learning about it. And I remember I have my love quartz crystal before I had my double terminated clear crystal, and I even watched the dark crystal when I was little. I don't know if you've seen that. But what roles do crystals play in your healing practice, and how can someone get started with crystal healing?
Crystal healing to me is a practice of love. And crystal healing actually was the first thing that after mantra practice, which is another vibrational healing portal, crystal healing was next for me. And then came inner child healing. And my journey with crystal healing was they came into my life when I asked for a healing way to heal myself as a new mom. And at the time, I had a newborn in my hands. I didn't have time to memorize anything. I didn't have uh, time or capacity to just learn any dogma. What I had time for was just connecting with, lying down with a few crystals and feeling into them. And in feeling into them, I started to feel better and better and better, which then led me to offering crystal healings and group sessions and teaching about them. In essence, what I teach is very, very simple. What if we learn to cultivate a loving, respectful relationship with crystals instead of using them? What if we realize and understand, which has been my journey, that they are our building blocks and the building blocks of the universe and everything you see around you. And as such, I see them as ancestors, as relatives. Our body is crystalline. Our blood is crystalline. It's liquid plasma. Our eyes are crystalline. Our fascia, So in my understanding, they can get in touch with us without the need for words because we are kin. We're sisters and brothers. We happen to be in more of a liquid crystalline form in comparison to them. And they're more in this beautifully formed, repeating sacred geometric structures. And what happens in that connection is very, very strong because they remind us how to be coherent, more organized, how to more efficiently connect with the soul essence that is us, with the subtler realms. And I feel like we remind them of the possibility of change. We are very quickly changing, evolving structures and beings. And it's a beautiful partnership. And in that partnership, it's possible to not just learn from each other, but you can hold the intention of co-creating a new reality. Let's say you're creating something new, like in your online course, writing something new. And you can say, um, help me connect with the essence, with the soul of my book. Or you can say, how do I bring more of this healing essence into my world? And they're incredibly, incredibly efficient in connecting you with those kinds of realms and flows in the universe.
Wow, that's beautiful. Now, what would be a common misconception about crystal healing that you'd like to dispel for our listeners?
You don't need a huge, big crystal. That was
Yeah.
my first, how should I put it, thing that I stumbled upon because I heard, or I mean, I came across the idea of crystals and I was like, oh, I need to go get the biggest crystals ever and invest this much money. But at the time, I didn't realize that each and every quartz crystal is connected to each and every clear quartz crystal in the universe.
Oh, wow.
Which, by the way, we are too. As humans, we have the collective human field that we, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're part of that unified field. And as crystals, they are also connected to all crystalline beings and elements and structures in the universe.
Wow.
That means they're connected to other planets. That means they're connected to air because there's bacteria and viruses in the air. What do they have there? They have partial DNA. DNA is a liquid crystal, and so on and so forth. So this tells you that, and our liquid crystalline physical form time on Earth is limited, even though the minerals that we are continue living on, their structural life is much longer.
Mm.
So they have, through their long life and through those connections, an immense amount of wisdom that spans across life and time.
Wow.
So what that means is that I have also found it actually doesn't matter which type of crystal you have in your pocket because they have access to every other one. So you don't need big ones. If you have a loving, beautiful, co-creative connection with even one piece of crystal, you have access to all of them. So there you go. Two things
Wow.
demystified.
Yes, very nice. Yes, I didn't know that. I mean, that's like, yeah, learning something new. And speaking about astrology, we were talking about even the stars, in Egypt, the experience that, or the dream that you had. Um, I get confused when it comes to astrology. The only thing I kind of know is like, okay, I'm a Sagittarius. Here's my horoscope. So it's complex for me. But can you actually break down how you integrate astrology into your healing work and personal life?
Thank you. That was a nice, nice bridge there. So yeah, I'm an astrologer as well, on top of being an inner child healer and crystal healing teacher, uh, or I should say, together with. Astrology to me is this beautiful, dynamic quantum realm of archetypes. So we each have different elements of inner children, as well as we each have different ways we have come into this particular physical essence to work with certain things. So a birth chart is simply the map of the skies at the time you were born, but it's so much more than that because it shows me what particular problems or challenges you're working with, what your soul craves, and what your soul journey, your learning journey might be here in this life. How does that empower you? It empowers you to know that, first of all, nothing is, everything is sort of connected to each other. And the parts of you that you thought were not belonging belong in a big way. And the parts of you you perhaps have a hard time understanding or being with actually have a huge purpose in the puzzle. The key becomes retelling your personal story through the help of astrology, which is very different than a horoscope. A horoscope, I don't even know how people write horoscopes,
Yeah.
but in the birth chart in astrology, what an astrologer interprets is how different archetypes, different parts of you interact with each other, how there might be push and pull of forces within you. There's an element of being seen, and being seen is, to me, equal to be feeling loved. And it helps you understand yourself better so that the next time a life wave hits you, you can be like, okay, this is the pattern that's playing out, and I have choices.
Right. Yes. Thanks for clarifying for for me because I was like, astrology is kind of confusing. So let's talk to the expert here. But I do know a lot about creativity. I love creating things every day, like even if it's my living space, if I want to move things around, if I want to get some new plants and put it here, I love changing things around. I love being creative. I love cooking. I love doing it all. I love being like a housewife, even though I do have a job now, I have my own business. I still love the homemaking life as well. Now, how do you actually nurture creativity in yourself and encourage it in others?
You touched upon a beautiful point, which is it's not that you get to be creative in one part and the rest of it is like you're just like a robot. They feed each other. And that's what I'm playing with in my life too at this point, which is like the way do you craft a meal isn't so different than the way you craft a newsletter or a writing piece or a blog post. And if you bring the same kind of same level of soul presence into each one of those things, it becomes more enjoyable. Life becomes more enjoyable. And then for me, because I do like offering wisdom, writing, I produce a podcast and I shoot videos and whatnot. There are certain parts though that are just for me. Like every once in a while, like once a year or so, I take myself to a pottery course. I love being with pottery because almost everything I do is out in the air, whether it's healing with energy or talking about astrology, that sort of earth presence grounds me. And then lately, I just started to draw pomegranates. I'm just in love with the form of a pomegranate and what it represents. It's like the womb, it's like the inside of our brains. It just holds a lot of like symbolic, mythical meaning for me. So I just take two colors, red and gold, and I love making the shape. The round shape suits me and the gold. And I've been gifting those little paintings to my friends, and I love doing something like that, which then carries over because you're feeding the spring of creativity in you. And then it can pour onto other areas of your life. So yeah, absolutely.
I love pomegranates, by the way. They are so good tasting as well. They don't only just look beautiful, they're very good. Yes. And so as a writer, what themes do you actually explore in your work, and how has writing actually influenced your healing methods?
Wow, that's a beautiful question. The themes I explore are the same as all of my work-related creative work, which is I'm interested in energetic wound healing, and that takes on many forms. Astrology is one piece, inner child is, crystal healing is, EFT tapping is another. I get ideas in the form of downloads. And then sometimes, like I might be walking down the street and something hits me. Shower is another place. The time between dream and waking up is another place. And I rush to my phone or like a notebook to take notes. And then certain things happen, like I might have a better understanding of something during a client session, and I put that into words. So it's a very like organic, natural process for me at this time. English is my second language, so I think of it as my perfectly imperfect offering. And I think of it as a way for me to channel that information that wants to flow from me, um, free of any pressure on my instrument, which includes my grammar or my perfect sentence for me. It flows out of me. And then, like I said, sometimes it flows just like this whoop, flop, big download of of a book or a journal. I've created also self-healing journals along the way. They just come out and they want to live in the world.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yes, and I'm starting to, and I'm keep on getting the messages of me also. I wake up and I remember like that vivid dream. It feels like, I mean, that's where I am, I guess. And I need to write things down. And so you're actually clarifying that for me and kind of like saying, okay, Gina, you need to do this because you just brought up that. And I'm like, oh, wait, I need to start doing that as well. So good to know. Because like I told you before, I'm supposed to be writing a book. In my heart, I feel it as well. I was starting to write a book. It was more like a memoir, but this time it's supposed to be like more of my dreams and the experiences of what's going on. So as my spirit guides tell me, so totally get what you're saying, totally get. So you also do intuitive reading, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay, I wanted
I
to make sure. Can you actually go ahead and explain what entails and maybe perhaps share a memorable experience from your practice?
um So first of all, my astrology readings are all intuitive in the sense that yes, there are technical elements in there, but I channel specific personal symbols for each element of the chart, as well as um, your phase of life that you're going through, the 3 or 4 years that you're in right now, and the next 4 to 8 years, so we can look at the themes of your life. Um, I'm clairvoyant and clairaudient, so I get the it's similar to the writing, except like when I'm focusing on a client's chart, they just come through and I write them down and then we make sense of it together. Similar in my tarot readings, that's more in the moment guidance. If you're coming to me with a certain question, that's easier. Tarot, I feel like makes what I see visible to you, so it's easier for the client to access. The other piece of that is I read Turkish coffee, and along that path, I realized actually a friend sort of forced me into reading her tea leaves, and I realized, okay, I can do that too. The Turkish coffee is very much a channeling experience. I don't get anything before. Um, it's something I've been around since birth. I feel the presence of my ancestors, and those the guidance that comes through that type of reading is very, very powerful, usually very action oriented and very to the point. And there may come certain things that you're not aware of. Um, So it's very, very strong. So I would say astrology is if you're trying to understand yourself better and know where you're at in life and know where you want to go. Tarot is if you have a particular question or a dilemma you're working with. And then Turkish coffee is if you're feeling adventurous and if you really want to know what your guides think about. Because I mean, they're talking through my guides too, and my guides are very much like, yeah, get going. They're very direct and they will tell you what needs to be happening or what you need to be aware of. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, Damla, where can our listeners go ahead and follow you either on social media or just through your website?
Yes, thank you. My website is super easy, adropofom.com, adropofom.com. And A Drop of Om is also where you can find me on YouTube, on Instagram. I do share quite a bit of little tips and tricks about inner child healing, crystal healing. And if you go to my website, you can find quite a few free resources. One of them is a free course on crystal healing myths. I go into other myths as well. And there is a quiz there that will show you what your energetic wounds are, which to me is the best place to start to find out what your clouds might be that are hiding your inner potential.
Wow, yes, and I will have everything in the show notes for our listeners. But any last words or last thoughts you'd like to share?
Thank you so much. This was such an enjoyable conversation for me. I hope the listeners enjoyed it too. I feel like we touched upon a variety of different things.
That's how I love it. I love variety.
They get a taste of a lot of the different things that I love doing. So thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.